I was stopped at the primary stop location by a lieutenant with the tribal police. After I was stopped by the lieutenant, I asked him what the nature of the checkpoint was and basically what was going on. And he responded by saying that this was a sobriety and a license checkpoint. And of course, this seemed really strange to me because there was a U.S. Customs officer working the line with him just a short distance away, along with Border Patrol agents further inside the checkpoint operation, and many federal law enforcement personnel that were present on the south side of the road. The next thing that the lieutenant asked me was he asked me for my driver's license. And at this point, I was concerned about the nature of the checkpoint, and it seemed to be far more expansive than what he had indicated. And I asked him if this checkpoint was being conducted on any sort of reasonable suspicion or probable cause that the people being stopped had violated any particular law. He responded by indicating that no, the checkpoint was suspicionless, and he didn't have any reason to believe that any particular person had violated any particular law. So once again, he requested my driver's license for a second time, and then I narrowed in and I said, do you have any reason to believe that I've done something wrong or that my driver's license, for instance, may not be in order? And as I was talking to the lieutenant, he actually called over a detective with the tribal police to come and talk to me because his attention was now on something else that was taking place behind me. So a detective came present who had been listening to the conversation that I had had with the lieutenant, and he told me straight out, he said, I can tell from the way you're conversing that you haven't been drinking. Your eyes aren't bloodshot. I can't smell any alcohol coming from your breath or from inside the cab. So I don't have any concern about whether or not you've been driving impaired. He said, this area is known for illegal aliens and illegal narcotic smuggling, and consequently everybody has to be identified before they're going to be allowed to pass through the checkpoint. So this detective had, if indeed this had been a sobriety checkpoint and was limited in scope to sobriety, then by the detective admitting that he had no reason to believe that I had been drinking after conversing with me, then at that point the stop, as it applied to me, should have ceased and I should have been waved through. But he made it very clear at this point that the scope of this checkpoint exceeded what the lieutenant had indicated it was when I first asked. And indeed, they were looking for illegal aliens and illegal narcotics as well. I indicated at this time that the Supreme Court had made a distinction between different types of checkpoints, and sobriety checkpoints where drivers posed an immediate danger to the traveling public would be considered permissible because they were addressing an immediate danger type of issue, whereas general law enforcement, where they're looking for things like drugs and other things of that nature, don't pose an immediate danger to the public, so therefore reasonable suspicion or probable cause are needed to do a stop in the first place. And as I was relating these court cases to the law enforcement personnel, the federal agent who had a U.S. Customs vest and had been listening to the conversation as well, he pushed himself forward. At this point, he actually kind of shoved some of the other tribal police officers out of the way so that he could get right up next to the driver's side door. And he told me at this point that, in a very aggressive manner, that I had better comply with the tribal police officers or I would be arrested for impeding a law enforcement operation. I, of course, was concerned that a federal agent had now approached me, and I turned to the lieutenant who had stopped me initially, and I asked him point blank, I said, what is the scope of this checkpoint? If this checkpoint is sobriety, why is there a federal agent that is now interacting with me? And at this point, the lieutenant indicated that this was indeed a joint task force operation that included not only the tribal police, but U.S. Customs and the Border Patrol as well. Another officer, I'm not sure who, asked me to pull my vehicle off to the side of the road. I turned back to the on-scene commander and I asked him if I was being detained. The on-scene commander said, no, you're not being detained. So I said, great, that must mean that I'm free to go. Is that correct? A third officer, who is named in the complaint at this point, used some derogatory terms and swear words. Told me he had had enough of me, and that I was to turn off the vehicle and get out now. So it was at this point where several of the officers put their hands on their guns, and realizing that diplomacy had failed at this particular point, I turned off the vehicle, pulled the keys out of the ignition, and put them in plain view, and then put my hands up on the steering wheel so the officers wouldn't have any concerns with regards to what I was doing with my hands. And I sat there still, and the officers opened my door, undid my seatbelt, grabbed me around the armpits, pulled me out of the vehicle, laid me down on the ground, handcuffed my hands behind my back, and dragged me off to the side of the road.